Hello, my name is Pam Ingram, and I'm a dietitian with the Lifestyle Center, and today I will be talking about nutrition and cancer prevention. Overall healthy lifestyle is probably the main thing that we can focus on right now. That we know just overall habits and lifestyles do affect our risk for cancer. Problem is, it's very hard to maintain a healthy lifestyle these days, and I think it really has gotten harder over time to be healthy and maintain that healthy lifestyle. All of these things play a role in our portions and how much we eat. We also tend to rely more on convenient foods out of cans and boxes, foods that are already prepared, that all we have to do is stick in the microwave, or we go through a drive-through. And that gets us to, most of those foods are going to be higher in calories, higher in things we don't need, and lower in a lot of the things we do need that are going to protect us against things like cancer. Also, there's less activity and exercise built into our day-to-day lives. The American Cancer Society, though, has established some basic guidelines that will help reduce the risk of cancer and protect us against many kinds of cancers. So they really narrow it down to 4 main things, and these are very big guidelines here. First one says to just maintain a healthy weight throughout life. Okay, and that is that we want to get to a healthy weight and stay there. Okay, we want to avoid a lot of up and down dieting and weight cycling. Adopt a physically active lifestyle, work to build up activity whenever and wherever we can. Healthy overall diet, emphasizing plant sources. Okay, so, and then alcohol. It's okay to drink some alcohol in moderation, of course. We want to limit that altogether. So we're going to look at these things one by one in a little bit more detail as we go, and how can we practically overcome some of those obstacles, and how can we work on achieving these guidelines. There's no easy way to work on a healthy weight. Overweight and obesity contribute to up to about 20% of cancers and cancer-related deaths. So that is very significant, that up to 1 in 5 deaths could be prevented from keeping at a healthy weight. Okay? And some specific kinds of cancers, we've narrowed it down to breast cancer, colon, uterine cancer, esophageal cancer, kidney, and then some others as well, pancreas and some others that might be related to weight. Even the Hodgkin's lymphoma there. So again, these are a little less certain, but there can be some relation to weight as well. Basically, it comes down to balance calories that you take in versus the calories that your body is using up in a day. That's what it really comes down to. So the healthy weight, physical activity, that go hand in hand, pretty much. Also, we need to limit the calories we take in to control, first of all, the high calorie foods that we might be taking in. The sugar in foods, the fat in foods, that's where a lot of those calories tend to hide. You can eat lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, and feel really full because you can have so much volume of food and still keep your calories low. Okay? Fiber in foods is another thing that's very filling. Foods that are high in fiber, not just the vegetables and fruits, but whole grain kinds of foods, beans, even nuts. Nuts I wouldn't say would be a low calorie food, but those foods that have more fiber are going to be more filling and keep you satisfied longer, and help control hunger and appetite better, and control weight. So then controlling food portions would be another way we need to really work on controlling calories. Half our plate should be made up of vegetables, or maybe vegetables and some fruit. The other half should be divided between a protein, which might be a meat or other type of a protein food, and then some grain. So bread, rice, pasta, something like that. Okay? So traditionally, we've had things like divided plates. So instead of putting the meat in that big section, we want to switch it off and put in one of the smaller sections. Okay? Put a grain, rice or something, in another small section, and then what do we put in the big section? Right. Also talks about avoiding excessive fat and sugar and sodium in foods. Sodium doesn't have a lot of calories, so it's not going to contribute to weight gain in that sense, but it can affect fluid weight. And countries where there's really very large amounts of sodium taken in, there seems to be higher incidence of things like stomach cancer, other digestive kinds of cancers. So there is a good reason to limit the sodium as well, beyond just weight control. The last point on here says to avoid unconscious eating and emotional eating, and that's another big point to all of this, and probably the most difficult to overcome. Unconsciously, we look for enjoyment from our foods. I think we're programmed that way, that we want to be able to enjoy our foods. And when we're rushed like that, we don't get that enjoyment from our food. So consequently, we're still looking for more food. So if we can work to really plan in some more planned meal times where we do have a little bit more time, not so rushed, maybe eat with the family together at a table without other distractions going on, that really is going to help a lot in getting the enjoyment out of the food and keeping us from overeating too. It really does help. If we do use these smaller plates, we will end up eating less. You know, you try to put a standard portion, a half a cup of something on a big plate, it's going to get lost a lot easier. It's going to look sad. So going to smaller plates and bowls and things, even glasses for our drinks, can help quite a bit with that as well. So physically active lifestyle can be our planned exercise. The goal would be about 30 minutes, 5 days a week or more of moderate to vigorously active exercise. Okay. So nice brisk walk for at least 30 minutes or more, or other activities. Children and teenagers, really the requirement for them, the goal for them is 60 minutes a day or more. Okay. Many benefits of the exercise. It does significantly reduce cancer risk, but also, and some of the things we see here are the ways it does that, by boosting our immune system, regulating things like insulin and blood pressure, stress hormones, and again, also helps with the weight control that we've been talking about. So we don't want to be sitting for just hours at a time. And if you do have a job that requires you to sit, maybe take, every 30 minutes or so, take a little break. You can stand up even for a couple of minutes. Just move around a little bit. And that already, if you do that several times during the day, that's going to boost up the calorie burning that you do in a day. There's research that shows that people that are naturally more busy, I'm not one of them unfortunately, but people that stay busy and naturally just move around more, that they burn up to 350 calories more a day than those of us like me that tend to be the ones that just sit and be content with sitting for long periods of time. So specifically with cancers, breast, colon, prostate cancers, uterine cancers, all can be reduced with physically active lifestyles. So the third guideline from the Cancer Society said to emphasize plant sources in our diets. And our foods, basically, if it's not coming from an animal, it's going to come from a plant pretty much. So this really also probably means more of the natural plant sources, less of the processed kinds of foods, where it's hard to tell that it came from a plant anymore. So basically what we want to focus on is whole grain kinds of foods, the vegetables and fruits we mentioned, also things like the nuts and the beans that we mentioned too as sources of fiber. Beyond just fiber in these foods, there's a lot of beneficial vitamins, essential vitamins that we know we need in a day, but also other things. There's what we call phytochemicals, antioxidant kinds of things in these foods that can reduce our risk for cancers and many other health issues too. So some of those you see listed there: carotenoids, flavonoids, sterols, can't even pronounce all of them on there, but a lot of these substances in these foods provide us benefit. Again, we mentioned these foods are very low in calories, so that alone is a great reason. to increase those in our diets. On the other side of that, if we said our foods come from either plant sources or animal sources, we do need to work on limiting the animal sources of foods. And there's been quite a bit of research lately that's gone into things like red meats and processed meats and the risk of cancer from them. Basically relating to things like colon cancer, rectal cancer, prostate cancers. Now, they're not sure exactly what would be the risk. Is it the saturated fat that's in these meats? They're thinking maybe it's not quite that, but actually a combination of things. There are some things that are these N-nitroso compounds in the processed meats especially. Things that have nitrates added. When they're cooked, they form these N-nitroso compounds. Now also, there's things called HCAs, heterocyclic amines, and PAHs are polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So, yeah, HCAs, PAH, what they are is what we would call mutagens. They can cause damage to DNA in our bodies, which can then lead to cancer. Okay? So they damage DNA, basically, is what mutagens do. When we cook the meats at high temperatures, like we grill them, charcoal grilling, right? We're heading into grilling season, but when we grill these meats, cook them at high temperatures like that, these compounds form, and then when we and maybe even when we combine it with the heme iron, the kind of iron that's in that meat, that can be particularly damaging to the DNA and lead to increased risk for cancer. Okay. So, again, this is theories now, and they're feeling pretty good about saying that these do pose a risk. But what do we have to give up grilling altogether? We don't really have to give that up. But there are some strategies that we can do. One of the things, interestingly, is that if we eat things like cruciferous vegetables, things like cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, those kinds of things at the same time, then that might cancel out some of these unhealthy substances in there. Okay? So that can be a really good strategy. What we can do as well is minimize the grilling time. Cut down on the time that the food spends literally on that grill. So what you can do is maybe bake or parboil some foods. Do that ahead to start that cooking, and then you can put it on the grill so you can still get that grilled taste, but it doesn't have enough time for those compounds to build up so much in those meats. The other kinds of meats, chicken and turkey and fish, tend to build up less of these compounds than the red meats. Okay, so even grilling those is better for us than the red meats as well. So if we minimize, if we don't have a lot of red meats, processed meats on a daily basis, that's going to help. All right, so back to the fruits and vegetables again. The goal for these fruits and vegetables is multiple servings a day. This is one area where a lot of research has tried to narrow down specific substances in foods, and they have come up with, we saw a list on the previous slide of several different things that could have some effect on our risk for cancer. The goal is not that there's any one vegetable or any one fruit that's going to be that much better than all the others. Okay? The goal is to get in as much as we can. Do have some variety, and the variety comes in different colors of the vegetables and fruits. So we tend to group them in these families. The green vegetables, yellow and orange, like the carrots, squash and things, cantaloupe. The red ones, things like tomatoes, watermelon, strawberries. White, onions, potatoes, garlic, bananas, all those would be in the white family. The blue and purple, things like blueberries, I don't know if eggplant's grouped in there, some grapes, those kinds of things would be in the blue and purple category. The red cabbage. So we want to get a variety of those things, a variety of colors of vegetables and fruits in. The whole grains, several servings a day of whole grain foods. Again, the benefit is more than just fiber. There's things like, they're looking into selenium, vitamin E, vitamin B6, even that's in grains. They're looking at vitamin B6 as potentially help for lung cancer and maybe reducing risk of lung cancer. So that's kind of interesting. But again, that's still very much a question of whether that's a true benefit or not. So whole grains, I'm going to step out again. I've got several examples here. Bread and cereal can be more obvious whole grains. Things simple as just bran flakes there. Pastas, there's a lot more variety now of whole grain pastas that you can have. Brown rice. We talked a little bit with a couple people about this already. This grain called quinoa is one that's becoming more and more popular, that you cook it like rice. You can have different ways of preparing it. Even popcorn is a whole grain, or tortilla chips. Often they're made from 100% whole grain corn. Okay, so even in snack foods we can get some of these whole grains. Okay, do look, if you are after whole grains, look at the labels and make sure, if it doesn't say 100% whole grain clearly on a label, look closely at the ingredients, and you want to make sure that the first ingredient on there says whole grain. Okay, so again, that whole grain is where you're going to get some fiber, but also a lot of other nutrition that can help protect you. Okay. And so the fiber added, there's a lot of foods now where there's fiber added in there. That is not whole grain. Okay, and may not give us the same benefit as these 100% whole grain foods. The fat in things like nuts, nuts are not a low-calorie food. You don't eat nuts, you know, a can full of them at a time. It's still going to be one of those small portion foods, but the fat in them is a healthy kind of fat typically, so it's not a saturated fat. So the alcohol guidelines, briefly for the alcohol, would be again, just moderation with that. 1 drink a day or less for women and 2 for men. Okay. So there's several other things that are being researched as well that may offer some help. They're looking into things like calcium that could possibly help reduce our risk of colon cancer, maybe breast cancer. But if we supplement with a lot of calcium, that could actually increase the risk of something like prostate cancer. Other things, there's a lot of food additives that get researched. Again, with the exception of those nitrites in the processed meats, most of the additives, preservatives in our foods have been tested. They do get tested quite a bit before they're approved, and most show no risk at all for cancers. Organic foods is one that's becoming popular now, so we can avoid a lot of the preservatives and additives and things, pesticides that foods might be used when they're grown. And that's really a big question of whether the organic foods really help prevent cancer or not. It is smart, the guideline, the Cancer Society does recommend that we do wash our fruits and vegetables before eating, just in case for pesticides, but also even probably more so for other contaminants, E. coli and different things that can show up in our foods. And narrowing down those guidelines that we keep to a healthy weight, stay active or get active, do a lot of plant-based foods and less processed foods, less animal foods. Watch out for the grilling on the meats and things, and then get a variety of these foods as well.
But all the different things that she said about different products, what the nutritional benefits are of them, you know, the portion sizes that you need to eat and everything is excellent information for anybody.
The information is communicated in a way that definitely reaches the audience, and I come to see what's new, and keep up to date, because I am retired. I really respect the outreach into the community that Alamance Regional does, and that they very much are interested in providing people with the information that will help them to take responsibility for their health.